Thanks for tuning in to leftcoastnews.net, news and information from the wacky, sometimes communist, liberal West Coast of the United States. For more, visit leftcoastnews.net. Well, we got elections coming up. Seattle voters will soon decide on a $1.55 billion transportation levy, the largest property tax measure in city history that aims to expand transit services and address deteriorating infrastructure. The levy, if approved, will fund improved sidewalks, extended bike lanes, and better transit, advocates say. It would cost the owner of a median value Seattle home, $866,000 by one city estimate, $44 a month, an increase of about $21 per month, compared to the current levy, according to the city's Department of Transportation. In July, the City Council unanimously backed the levy, which would replace the expiring $930 million Move Seattle levy. Supporters include Mayor Bruce Harrell and a coalition of labor, business, and advocacy groups. According to SDOT, the proposal allocates approximately $403 million for street maintenance and repaving, $221 million for bridge repairs, and $193 million for pedestrian safety enhancements, including 350 new blocks of sidewalks and 34,000 repairs. $133.5 million is earmarked for bicycle safety, including new protected bike lanes and bike lane barriers, which means less lanes for car traffic. The proposal also includes $100 million to install and maintain traffic signals and improve accessibility. It will absolutely make the streets safer, Tom Fucoloro of Seattle Bike Blog told the Seattle Times. Well, Seattle loves to tax itself. Tax, so I suppose Seattle voters are past this, but I don't know why you want to keep racking up your property taxes. This is going to make rent go up as well, because you know landlords are going to pass this on to the renters. Vote no. Washington Governor Jay Inslee hosted California Governor Gavin Newsom in Seattle this past weekend. What a couple those two make, huh? In an effort to get out the vote in opposition to Initiative 2117. The ballot measure would eliminate a program requiring Washington's largest polluters to pay for greenhouse gas emission permits and would forbid leaders from creating similar efforts in the future. Amen. The Cap and Invest carbon market was created by the state's Climate Commitment Act and has raised billions of dollars that pay for climate programs, including initiatives in communities and tribes hardest hit by the impacts of climate change, state transportation infrastructure projects, and support for job creation and climate tech companies working on decarbonization. Backers of the initiative call the program a hidden gas tax and blame it for the state's higher than average prices at the pump. The Climate Commitment Act, spearheaded by Inslee, is the state's most impactful climate law. The governor's third term ends in January, and he did not seek a fourth. Climate issues have been his most impassioned focal area. On Saturday, the two governors met in Seattle's Beacon Hill neighborhood for a No on 2117 rally and to support door knocking in the community. The initiative would prohibit any state agencies from implementing a cap and trade or cap and tax program. The initiative would repeal the 2021 Climate Commitment Act, a state law that provided for a cap and invest program designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 95% by 2050. Did you know that you could pay money and greenhouse gas will magically disappear? The Cap and Invest program, overseen by the Washington Department of Ecology, sets a cap on the total carbon emissions in the state. Under the program, businesses with emissions exceeding 25,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year must obtain allowances equal to their allowed greenhouse gas emissions. The allowances can be obtained through quarterly auctions hosted by the State Department of Ecology or on a secondary market similar to the stock market. The Cap and Invest program was designed to allow businesses that reduce emissions to sell their remaining carbon emission allowance permits to other companies, thereby incentivizing companies to lower their emissions. About 75% of the state's total emissions are covered by the CCA's Cap and Invest program. Business types covered under the Cap and Invest program include fuel suppliers, natural gas and electric utilities, waste-to-energy facilities beginning in 2027, and railroads beginning in 2031. The program exempts emissions from fuel used for agricultural purposes, aviation fuel, and marine fuels combusted outside of the state. Not for trains, though. Businesses that do not comply with the program are subject to a fine of up to $50,000 per violation per day. This state is all about money and how much they can take from you. That is what this state government is about. Businesses that are classified as emissions-intensive, trade-exposed, or EITEs are given a certain amount of allowances at no cost through 2034. One example of a large business with high emissions in Washington that is classified as an EITE is Boeing. Imagine that. Because Boeing has paid off the politicians, which operates major airplane manufacturing and assembly facilities throughout the state, including a facility in Everett. One of the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide, and they don't have to pay. Isn't that convenient? This is the way the Democrats run things. Initiative sponsor State Rep Jim Walsh said, Republican, this cap and trade gas tax scheme is what is making Washington's price of living the highest in the nation alongside California. This cap and trade gas tax scheme has created over $1.5 billion for Olympia bureaucrats in this year alone, paid for by working families, and it doesn't actually reduce emissions. It punishes working families, and it doesn't actually reduce emissions in our state. People still need to drive to work, go to the grocery store, and drop kids off at school and heat their homes. It doesn't just stop at our cars. It's directly driving up the price of our groceries and other goods in the supply chain, and it is driving up your home utility costs. Again, folks, you need to pass Initiative 2117 and get rid of this extra crappy tax that Governor Inslee has implemented on us that isn't getting rid of any carbon emissions. And the city of Seattle is looking at a $250 million budget deficit. Mayor Bruce Harrell, how does he want to fix the deficit? He wants to take that payroll tax, the jumpstart tax, revenues that were supposed to be used for homeless people, helping them get housing, and use that to fix the budget deficit. On September 24th, Mayor Bruce Harrell released his proposed budget. The Harrell administration has done the difficult and thankless work of combing through the entire city budget. It is his job, so whether it's difficult and thankless is irrelevant. That's your job as the mayor, bud. Identifying inefficiencies department by department. Despite these efforts, the savings generated were minimal, leaving the mayor with few options to address the current general fund deficit. He proposes diverting funds raised by the Jumpstart payroll tax that were intended for affordable housing. Well, how does that make you feel, all you liberals that are so for homeless and affordable housing? They're going to take that money and use it for something else. That's a shocker. Didn't see that one coming. Democrats never, politicians in general, never do that. Major cuts to the general fund would compromise services and infrastructure that we rely on daily. However, diverting funds from affordable housing cannot be a permanent solution. The continued reliance on Jumpstart to balance the overall city budget is unsustainable and undermines the very purpose for which it was created. The Jumpstart tax, first collected in 2021, was created in a good faith partnership to address many of Seattle's most pressing challenges: homelessness, displacement, and unaffordability, by dedicating funding for affordable housing, equitable development, climate investments, and economic development. This progressive revenue source has been tremendously successful in generating the funding needed to scale up the investments. The tax passed by the City Council in 2020 requires businesses that spend at least $7 million on payroll annually to pay tax on salaries and wages of high earners. It's a rich people tax. The city cannot permanently divert Jumpstart revenues into the general fund as is currently proposed, failing to preserve the original Jumpstart. And this is from the Seattle Times, by the way. That's why it's written like this. It's an opinion piece. Failing to preserve the original Jumpstart spend plan and permanently diverting the payroll expense tax revenues into the general fund would undermine the original intent of the tax to create dedicated long-term funding for affordable housing and community investments. The need for these investments is immense and far exceeds what is outlined in the current budget proposal. Any redirection of Jumpstart funds must be time-limited and paired with a concrete plan to address the structural budget deficit through new revenue sources. While the mayor's budget does include a 2.5% increase in affordable housing investments, these gains come after decades of chronic underfunding, even as the demand for public support has continued to grow. Our affordable housing sector stands ready to scale up production of desperately needed affordable homes, but additional funding is crucial. This fall, the Office of Housing received 21 funding requests totaling $361 million to build and preserve 2,443 affordable homes. Yet only $112 million in funding is available. The path forward is clear. We must protect Jumpstart's dedicated funding for affordable housing while simultaneously developing new progressive taxes to resolve Seattle's structural budget deficit. If we want a city that can invest in public safety, maintain our libraries and parks, repair our streets and bridges, and ensure that living here is affordable for all Seattleites, we need to implement sustainable and equitable revenue solutions. By safeguarding affordable housing investments and finding long-term ways to fund the city's needs, we can build stronger, more resilient Seattle for generations to come. The proposed budget includes approximately $8.3 billion in appropriations overall. $8.3 billion for one city. Insane. Including $1.9 billion in general fund. Within the general fund, the budget proposal includes $916 million for public safety services, $264 million for education and human services, $145 million in arts, culture, and recreation, $91 million in utilities, transportation, and the environment, and $57 million in livable and inclusive communities. Proposal also includes $342 million investment to support affordable housing in 2025 and an additional $343 million in 2026, the largest single investments in affordable housing in Seattle's history. Okay, I want to talk about three radicals running for office in Washington, Western Washington, and they're all members of the Democratic Socialists of America openly. I don't know if you know what that is, but I'm going to read to you what they stand for. They demand a society where all participate as equals and are respected for their worth as human beings. A society where, through democratic processes, a full life for all may be achieved. With this maxim in mind, and in solidarity with Democratic Socialists of America nationally and like-minded anti-capitalists everywhere, we fight for the following demands. The economy must be run democratically. None shall be poor, so another can be rich. As it stands, the overwhelming majority of people have little power over the nature of their work or their compensation for it. We demand that people have control over how they work, when they work, and how their labor is applied. The abolition of poverty. Both in the United States and globally, the world is more productive than it has ever been, yet millions upon millions remain mired in poverty, coerced by necessity into destructive arrangements at work and at home. They lack adequate access to the necessities of human life. Increased productivity can eliminate poverty and satisfy everyone's material needs. We demand a system that can achieve this. affordable, humane housing for all. A home is not a commodity, it is a human right. We demand that everyone has access to housing that meets their needs and neighborhoods that foster vibrant communities. Universal Medicare for all. No one should risk financial ruin when they consider going to the doctor. Everyone must have access to quality government-financed medical care throughout their lives. This is the most immediately achievable through a single-payer system, because this is working out so well in countries that do this, right? Free education from PK to trade, free from pre-K to trades, college, and beyond. We reject wealth as a criterion for receiving quality education at any level. We must not only guarantee access to higher education, but must also ensure students are provided with the tools to take advantage of that guarantee. Democracy in the workplace. All workers have the right to organize. We see the primary means to improve everyday life through democratic control manifested in a socialist system. We must resist dismantling of workers' rights to organize and instead bolster them by supporting unions in the fight for living wages, equal pay, and safe workplaces. We demand an economic system in which workers control their labor. Complete reproductive freedom in all forms. Everyone should have the support and tools to decide if and when to have children. We must ensure access to birth control and safe legal abortion and all forms of family planning. Well, there is safe access to birth control for all right now. Just go to your local health department. We must provide material support to ensure every child is raised free from discrimination, violence, and oppression. An end to racial, gender, and all other forms of oppression. Whether it be on the basis of race, gender, religion, orientation, or disability, we must fight alongside those who face violence and exploitation. We recognize that the exploitation in our society is as intersectional as its members, and our struggle must therefore be intersectional as well. An end to punitive justice and mass incarceration. We demand an end to prisons as a weapon of domination, an end to the drug war, an end to broken families, and an end to the barbaric treatment of inmates. What about the victims of these criminals that you are so passionate about releasing upon society? Do they matter? Do those broken families matter? We cannot confront these issues unless we recognize the systematic racism at their very core. We fight for a justice system that prioritizes rehabilitation over punishment. Some people cannot be rehabilitated, Guy. That's just the way it is. An end to military and police aggression, both at home and abroad. Violent force is used as a tool of racist oppression and capitalist exploitation. As our imperial domination extends on foreign soil, it's hard to read through this bullshit. So too does brutal, murderous repression grow in our communities. We demand an end to American imperialism and police militarization. Democratic control over the environment to preserve the planet. If left unchecked, capitalism will destroy our planet, and those least responsible will suffer the greatest consequences. We must ensure everyone has access to clean and affordable food and water. We demand environmental justice for the living and responsible stewardship in the name of those yet to be born. Total freedom to migrate. Humanity has no borders. There it is. We reject a global system that facilitates the movement of capital across borders but denies human beings the freedom to live with the dignity in the communities of their choice. We demand full and equal rights for all regardless of citizenship, an end to all forms of immigrant detention and imprisonment, and a humane, publicly funded immigration system that actively supports people who choose to move to the United States. Communism. Right, comrades? Pure communism. And this socialism that they're claiming it is has worked so well in these other countries, right? Under Lenin and Stalin and Mao and all these dictators. Oh, but they're going to do it different this time. It's not going to be different. Just look at your leadership now, the Democrats that you support. They don't follow through with the things that they promise now. What makes you think it's going to be any different if you were to be in control with your socialist ideas, ideals, all that? Anyway, now that you know what the Democratic Socialists stand for, this first guy I want to talk about, Sid Locke. He is running for State House Legislative District 22 as a Democrat, openly a Democratic Socialist. Pictures on his website show as much. If any of these people get elected as Democratic Socialists, they will be the first Democratic Socialist in 100 years to be elected into office in Washington. Old Sid has worked as a senior legislative assistant for over 30 years for multiple Democratic members of the Washington State House and Senate. Unlike many candidates, this is from his website, unlike many candidates who take money from special interests, Sid won't take corporate money. That's a real difference that matters. He says he's going to solve our housing affordability, healthcare and climate crises, increase wages, and improve working conditions. And he's going to push for police accountability in Washington State and an end to the genocide and occupation in Palestine. Because that's important to Washingtonians right now, right? I mean, that's, these things that we deal with on a daily basis. Somehow this Palestinian thing will solve our problems, right, bud? More from his website on priorities. How do we choose priorities when so many issues are important and intertwined? Capitalism, racism, settler colonialism, sexism, authoritarianism, ableism, and more are roadblocks to building a better world, a sustainable world, a beautiful world. We are all in this world together, and we are connected to the earth. We can make change if we struggle to shift the oppressive systems that shackle our minds and bodies. If we accept each other, dream together, and work together, we will make change. Old Sid also belongs to a Palestinian group called PASS. This is the Palestine Action of South Sound. And they are an extreme group that is tied to the Sami Dune group, which is a international Palestinian charity group, which was recently recognized as a terrorist group by the United States and Canada, already a terrorist group by Germany and Israel. The lady who is the talking headpiece from Vancouver, BC, has said horrible things about America. They held a protest on October 14th that Sid Locke, I'm assuming, went to because this PASS group traveled up from Olympia to meet with the Sami Dune group in Seattle, and they were talking about death to America. And it was right after this that the U.S. government decided to recognize them as a terrorist group, because they are. They're a front for Hamas. They openly talk about Hamas. They send money to Hezbollah and Hamas. This talking headpiece, Charlotte Cates, I believe is her name, recently got a quote-unquote humanitarian award from Iran in August. I mean, that tells you what you need to know, right? This guy belongs to a group which supports a terrorist organization. So if you go to their website, you can look at their guiding principles, which is all the same garbage that these groups are saying. And if you go to the little 3 dots and click on that, they have seminar text that you can click on, a seminar reading list, and one is Hamas with a Tariq Bakoni. And it goes to a whole site where he talks about the history of Hamas in the context we need. and talks about how good they are. Also, places where you can donate money and all this other stuff. The Sammy Dune group that Pass is a part of is openly talking about now that people need to besiege Zionist embassies around the world. So, American, Israeli, anybody that supports Israel. And they're also talking about that the time has come for people to take direct action against government entities and in order to retaliate for this terrorist designation. So my question is, why would you vote for this clown who belongs to these extreme groups and somebody whose number one first order of business if he gets elected is to day one in office, and this was on his website. I can't find it now. It's been removed, it looks like. Maybe since this whole blow up in Seattle. I don't know. But he wanted to force the legislature in Olympia to hold a memorialization vote for Palestine, supporting Palestine, and going against Israel, and, basically defunding Israel, de-arming Israel, all that stuff, whatever. That stuff does not belong in the Washington state legislature. We have all kinds of problems in this state right now as it is. We don't need to interject ourselves. That is not priority number one. We have people that need housing. We have people that can't afford their groceries, gasoline, electric bills, all this other stuff. The state is just asking for more and more and more all the time, and we're getting less and less back. And this clown wants to spend his time working for Palestine in the Washington state government. Are you kidding me? Not to mention, he doesn't support the Constitution of the United States. He doesn't want you to have freedoms like you have right now. He wants you to live under a socialist government. That is the goal of all these people. Likewise, is this candidate running for Seattle District 4's open seat, Sean Scott. And he also is an openly Seattle Democratic Socialist member. This is what he has to say about what's important to him as running as a politician. In Seattle's current struggles, we see the echoes of past traumas imposed upon the indigenous peoples who cradled this city before its colonization. Rampant environmental degradation, racial segregation, restrictive land use policies. Repairing these foundational injustices, these first and deepest cuts, is not just the right thing to do. It's the way we're going to make Seattle a truly equitable city, unfettered from its long, ugly legacy of white supremacy. Yep. I am running to represent District 4 on the Seattle City Council because I have a vision for the city I've lived in for 26 years. The vision is grounded in my perspective as a filmmaker, writer, and organizer who believes in the incredible words of Nikita Oliver that we're better off when we lift from the bottom and pull from the margins of society. That's why if I earned the opportunity to serve on the council, one of my first acts would be to craft a resolution in which the city of Seattle formally recognizes the sovereignty of the Duwamish, Suquamish, Muckleshoots, and Snohomish tribes. Such formal recognition could be the first step towards real redistributive justice, hopefully paving the way for a law that would bind the city to pay rent to the indigenous peoples whose land we use rent-free. I was once a labor organizer with the Campaign Workers Guild who helped lead the effort to have Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal become the first ever congressional incumbent with a unionized campaign staff. If that experience taught me anything, it's that the first step to successfully negotiating is having one's right to collectively bargain recognized. I entered political life as a Black Lives Matter activist in late 2014. Later, I served as a delegate for Bernie Sanders then as a journalist who has written about this city's politics from the vantage point of its most vulnerable residents, and eventually as an organizer with the Seattle Democratic Socialists of America. All across this country in the last couple years, we witnessed Democratic Socialists run for office and win in ways that have raised our expectations of what politically is possible. Either you would support undocumented Seattleites by creating a system where they can vote in local elections, or you would not. Either you believe massive government investment in affordable and public housing is key to reducing our carbon emissions, or you do not believe in climate change. Either you see that exempting feminine hygiene products from the sales tax is a small step we could take on the road to gender equality, or you don't see a problem. Do you see does this help the general population, these ideas, these lunatic ideas about equity and inclusivity? All these buzzwords we hear now. He says that our political representation is composed overwhelmingly of people from privileged backgrounds who have the financial security to seek office without having to work a day job, or you believe that representation doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter for a lot of us. He goes on to say Trump's election was the culmination of 40 years of capitalism's complete co-optation of the public trust, to say nothing of the millennia-long project of toxic masculinity. As a city councilman, he will work to identify eco-taxes that can be implemented at the city level and pursue them to the greatest extent of his authority, because life on Earth depends on it. The last candidate who's running for District 9, Melissa Chaudhry, who appears to be a white girl who thinks she's Muslim. Her life experience is 15 years in civil rights, housing, community activism, human services, global sustainability, work experience, and climate innovation. She studied systems science, grassroots history, peace organizing, ecological design, macroeconomics, global finance, and the trajectories of empire and the roots of war. Again, this person is hyper-focused on the Palestine situation. Now, she does say some things that I have to agree with. She's opposed to forever wars. Says they're unconstitutional, un-American, and immoral, which I tend to agree with. We need to stop interjecting into other countries' business. And she says she firmly believes in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Free speech is the single most aspect of being American. Without the First Amendment, we lose the soul of America. She will protect and defend the UN's Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Can't argue with that. Her website goes on to say, together we can make the fundamental principles of America meaningful again. Peace based on truth, equality, and liberty and justice for all. Again, agree. But she fully supports the creation of a humane, welcoming, equitable, and supportive immigration system where all immigrants are welcomed, supported on arrival, and helped with language, housing, legal services, job training, and living expenses while they settle in. This is by far the fastest and fairest path to a thriving and inclusive community. How about Americans that need that help? How about Washingtonians who need that help? Do you care about them? And like I said, hyper-focused on Palestine. Security for Jewish people inside Israel or outside of it. It will never be achieved at the expense of security for Palestinian, Arab, or Muslim people. She calls for a ceasefire and permanent resolution of the conflict, which must necessarily include respecting and protecting the fundamental human rights of all residents of that region. Palestinians have the right to exist in Palestine, and all people in the region deserve peace, recognition, and justice, starting with those who have been dispossessed for 80 years. Again, not Washington State's problem. Not our need to waste time on it. This is an international problem. This is a federal government issue, not a state government issue. Whatever you do at the Washington state government level, will have zero effect on whatever is going on federally or internationally. Period. End of story. Waste of time. While I do agree that we need a change in the political atmosphere in this state, and I think most of us know this, but the problems Washingtonians face should be first and foremost the economy, crime, which is out of control, drug use, homelessness, all out of control under Democratic leadership for the last 40 years. And putting socialists into office is not going to make this situation any better. More government is not the answer. Less government is the answer. Less taxes on those of us who work. We need more pro-business, small business, especially politicians in office, which the Democrats have proven time and time again they are not. They want the government to control every aspect of your life. And I didn't even talk about what a mistake it would be to elect Bob Ferguson as the governor of this state. What a terrible choice that would be. He is not pro-public safety like he likes to say he is, at all. Anti-law enforcement, anti-public safety, pro-criminal. He is all about criminal rights and them having more rights than you have. He doesn't respect your right to defend yourself or have a weapon to defend yourself with, which in this climate, in this current time of the state, you need to have a weapon to defend yourself because nobody's going to be there to help you when you need it. You've got some serious choices to make on that voting ballot on November 5th. Think about the choices and think about how you want your future to play out in this state, because we are at a tipping point here. Vote wisely. Know who you're voting for. This is America. This isn't Russia. This isn't Ukraine. This isn't Israel. This isn't Palestine or Iran. America. And it should be America first. Thanks for listening to Left Coast News. For more, visit leftcoastnews.net. Please subscribe, like, and share to your social media. We appreciate your support.